Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I was just giving
Great.
people a couple of more minutes to join. We'll get started soon to our PRs. There was an issue raised by Xinghe last night. So I've added to the discussion agenda. Before we start, Yi and Feynman, Binbin, do you have anything else to add to the agenda?
Yeah, I don't have.
Yeah, I think if we have a time, maybe we can discuss. Let me check. Yeah, the RC7 includes some breaking changes. We can discuss this one, and also the Ratify OS side by side with policy add-on, and also this one.
Yeah, so because the side-by-side scenario is an internal project, so we can discuss in the internal meeting.
Sure.
Cool. Let's get started. We have a few people on the call now. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes. Yeah, we can see.
Just a quick rundown on our CRs, PRs, sorry, yeah. CR for code review, PR for pull request. The first one, the graceful shutdown for HTTP server. I did have a few questions, but Akash is not on the call. But maybe Binbin, you'll be able to provide some context as well. So what we're doing here is adding the graceful shutdown method instead of the previous server.serve. My initial feedback on the method is probably like, if it's starting the server, probably we should make sure, because currently the title reads as if it was like shutting down the server. So maybe I'll add a suggestion to rename the method. The question, Binbin, if you know, like we're defining the Go function here, and we're kind of like checking for the signal, the termination signal, and then we're doing a shutdown. Does this get executed immediately, or is there like a what's the signal that we would execute this subroutine? Because we're defining a subroutine which with our shutdown logic, and then I can see down here we are doing the serve as usual. So I'm just curious, like, do you know what is the timing to execute the subroutine?
Oh, I haven't checked the PR yet, so I need to look at it after the meeting.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I had a little bit of discussion with Akash here on like, okay, we're giving the 6 seconds for the old pods to shut down, but there's still, like Akash explained, that there's still a gap that we have to have a readiness probe to correctly detect if the new pods are running, and then we could switch the traffic. So for this, we would enter like a connection refused kind of state. So very like on a rare occasion, if the audit routine is still going, like we might see some failures in Ratify, but with we'll document, okay, maybe not document, but like I think this is pretty standard behavior. Like we've logged a new issue to track the readiness probe, but for this PR, we're just kind of like we would return like a connection refused instead of like, oh, we took your request and then the pod is going to shut down mode. I think behavior-wise, that's we were able to clarify on this thread, and then Binbin and I will give another review on the PR.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. I guess Akash is just joining, so I can ask him quickly. Hello, Akash.
There you go. Audio connected.
Yeah. Hey guys, sorry I'm late.
No problem. We would, because the PR was top of the list with the grateful shutdown, like I just had a, I just summarized what we discussed in the thread, that we are tracking the probe readiness work as a separate work item. And then I had some question around like the subroutine that's defined right here, like when does this get executed? Because we're doing the server startup like down here. So I was just curious, with the subroutine defined to handle the shutdown, when does that actually get run?
So this routine actually is responsible for both starting and ending the actual server listener. So if you scroll down a little bit, keep scrolling down after this comment, keep going down, you see the if. So if is TLS enabled, that's the routine responsible for actually starting up the server and listening, depending on if TLS is enabled or not. Now the function that actually the go routine that we've added above that's responsible for the shutdown, that immediately starts, and all it does is it blocks on listening for a OS signal. So it listens for both a command line interrupt signal as well as a sig term signal, and the sig term is sent when the when Kubernetes is terminating a pod. So when the pod terminates, it sends that to the container as a sig term.
Oh, got it. So it's just listening, and as soon as it's found the signal, then line 199 gets executed.
Correct. And then you set a context with 6 seconds. So it says it'll attempt to shut down the server, and it waits on that. Basically, the shutdown will stop accepting new connections on the server, but it'll let the existing connections stay alive for up to 6 seconds until the context expires. And if there are connections still alive afterwards, then those are just immediately terminated, and an error is returned as well along with that.
Yeah, sounds good. I will add like some comments on, like, I was just going through the method name, like the method name looks like it's shutting down, but in fact is actually starting up the server, but also like listening for the shutdown signal and stuff. But Binbin and I will go through this PR offline later. But overall looks great.
Cool, sounds good. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I'll rename this to something better.
Thanks.
Yeah.
The next PR is the error handling PR.
Yeah, I got a lot of feedback from students, so I'll need to address them today.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Binbin, I guess you're working on from the items from our discussion.
Yeah.
Akash, if you have time, feel free to take a look as well.
Sure, sounds good.
Next one up is the certificate provider with get secret. So this one is ready to go. I've merged with the latest in main and validated all the test is passing. So Binbin and Akash, when you have a second, please give it a review, and I will do the update branch now, which will kick off another round of the test. Yeah, so we'll let this one run. Moving on to the next one, the access of secrets with namespaces. I wonder if this one is ready to go as well. I see all the comments resolved and Xinghe provided a sign off. Binbin, is this one good to go?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for approval. The last comment is from Akash said for the service account access, we still need to keep it under the cluster level. So yeah, I just made the change.
Yeah, actually, Bin, Sinha had a follow-up on that, and he brought up a good point. Actually, it's only at the secret level that we need cluster role. I misspoke. It should for the service account, we changed the behavior so it only looks for the Ratify release installation namespace for the service account to be found. It doesn't support service accounts across multiple namespaces.
Okay, so only the secret get permission should be the cluster level.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Bin. I guess you'll make that change and retag for review.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
Cool. Next one, 965, skip helm generation, generate CA.
So
If certificate
basically,
rotator
if you scroll down a bit, there is a table that I just listed all the. Oh no, just let's scroll up to the description. So this is the table I listed for all the case. So currently we will need to check 3 conditions. One is that if user provides the TR serve, and second condition is that if the Ratify TR secret exists or not. And third condition is that if we enable the search rotation. So this is a combination of 3 conditions, and there are 8. There would be 8 cases. And yes, the expected behavior also listed. So we are basically just checking 3 conditions for now to do different behavior.
Cool. We'll give this one a review. Have you included this great table in a doc somewhere? It's also to have great to have as a part of our docs.
Not yet. I think it should be documented. And yeah. I'm also thinking if I should add, in system, maybe I need to have 5 unit tests or the integration test.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
pretty big matrix.
This table is pretty cool. I would also encourage you to sort of maybe with other services like iGatekeeper, are they maybe they can actually benefit from a table like this so that we can basically standardize some behaviors. That makes sense. Can we potentially share this one with Gatekeeper and make sure that we sort of align on behavior?
Yeah, I also checked the Gatekeeper implementation. I feel their behavior is more, maybe a bit simpler than our case. So I can list it after the meeting since it's more, I guess we can discuss it offline.
Yeah, I think that what I would like to prevent here is just, I think we should standardize in behaviors so that customers that are used to sort of Gatekeeper also don't get surprised by we do something different than them or something like that. I think it's a nice thing to just socialize this with Gatekeeper and make sure we
yeah. Sure.
Thank you, Bin.
So Bin, I actually completed the test that I was talking about last night with you. And I don't get any more TLS errors, but the readiness probe issue is still around, but that's a separate issue. So.
Okay. Yeah. I'll think with you then.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. That's all those PRs we have on the list. We'll continue working towards closing them all. Back to our agenda. What's the date today? August 9th. Yep. Akash, thanks for investigating this one. Do you want to go through the challenge that Xinghe faced, and then we can discuss on what is the goal for GA and what's the midterm and long-term plan?
Sure. So yeah, I took an initial glance at this, but Susan, Bin, whenever you have a chance, also take a look at this and see if it makes sense. But basically what Sinha was trying to do here was he had two different ORS stores. So two CRs that he applied. One is the default ORS one that our chart applies, and that one selects the default Docker config auth provider. And then he wanted side by side another store for Azure workload identity provider. And he was trying to satisfy the case where you have a mix of, GHCR versus Azure-based ACR workload identity scenarios. And he was running into issues where intermittently, like the mutation may succeed, so the tag to digest resolution would succeed, but the actual verification process would fail with a 401 error. So that immediately pointed to it's using the wrong store for auth-based solutions. So it's using the Docker-based config provider for some operations for ORS store, and it's using the other one for other operations, causing intermittent 401s depending on which store it's selected. So if you scroll down, the culprit for this is in our executor. If you look at the way that the executor is written, if you just click on that link, Susan. So in the executor, we loop through each of the refer stores that we have configured. So in our case, we have two different refer stores, and we kick off a separate go routine per refer store. So each refer store is responsible for, resolving, grabbing the descriptor and then calling the list refers on that subject, and then continuing on with the verification flow. And each one of those stores runs a separate routine. And each of those routines is part of, in Go, there's something called an error group. So error groups are basically a way to group different routines together, and you share an error channel between the routines. So if one of the routines returns an error, that gets propagated back up to the listener, and then you can immediately terminate the other routines based off of that error channel. So the issue that I think we're running into here is that one of the stores, each of the stores is going to attempt to resolve the subject descriptor. The one without the correct auth provider is going to return a 401, and then we immediately return an error. But the other one succeeded, and it's continuing on with the verification, but because we have a shared error channel, it terminates the other ORS store's go routine, and we return that as a failure of the complete operation. So we need to basically catch these errors per routine, but not cancel the other routines. We should be able to gracefully handle if one ORS store doesn't work, but there is another one that does succeed. So that's my hypothesis right now. That's what I think makes sense. But if others want to take a look at this and see if that's the case they come to.
Is it split by registry? Like the scopes are different for each one of these stores, right?
So we don't actually have a concept of registry-based scope for the store. So for any registry that comes across, it's just going to have the same. It's going to try to run the same operation on each of the stores.
So there's no way to say that. Well, because you could have a public image that doesn't even need the identity.
Yes. Yep. So my thinking is that I think the original reason Shin had decided to put two stores was because we only support a single auth provider per store. So the solution to this is we need to support multiple auth providers per store and add that registry scoping capability.
No, makes sense. I think you wouldn't have multiple snapshotters against different So you wouldn't have a snapshotter per registry when you have like a Docker client or something, right? Like you would just have one snapshotter. It knows how to do the auth with different credential providers.
Yep.
So one store should be able to handle multiple targets. So right now, just for my knowledge, how are we setting the work identity, the workload identity?
What do you mean in terms of setting the workload identity?
For the store, like when you how does it know which identity to pick up?
So it based off of the configuration that you define in the Aura store. So you can only set up one auth provider block. So if you select the Azure workload identity auth provider, based off of that name, it can register the correct workload identity, the Azure workload identity provider, and in that you can provide the different identity fields that are required. So currently it's based off of the configuration. So if you change, and it only accepts one. So if you change the CRD to use a different auth provider in exchange of that, then it'll replace that store with a new one with the updated auth provider. But it doesn't allow for multiple per store. So.
And the auth provider names, what are they? Are they CRDs too, or are they just?
They're just fields within the store CRD, so they're not a CRD on their own.
So you need an array here.
Yes, we need an array. We'd almost need a keychain style of.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty much like how the Docker config is written, right? For the specific registry, this is the credential, or this is the credential helper.
Yes.
Okay, looks like a good follow-up. It's like a feature request somehow. Or is it a bug fix for supporting it in multiple store style? And we do
Yeah,
what?
are we supporting multiple auth provider per store as well as multiple stores?
I think, yeah. So I think they're two separate issues. We need to definitely fix the issue with the error groups, because it was only caught because there's an auth provider issue, but it could be another error that would lead to the same result between different store implementations. So that also needs to be fixed. And then we should also support multiple auth providers per store. So you could have like multiple stores, and then within each store, you would have multiple auth providers and a keychain defined.
What's the logical, like, what's a good example for multiple stores, ignoring the auth provider scenario?
So when I spoke to Teja, her original reasoning was, what if we used a non-registry based,
A file store, right?
yeah, file store or like a SQL database or something like that to get artifacts.
I think for a store type, maybe one is all you need. Like say, for example, a remote registry, one store with multiple auth providers might be good, but a file store would be an entirely different thing. But what the bug came up because this is the only way to specify multiple auth, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. This is very cool.
So should we tackle the support multiple auth provider first before we support multiple store?
I think we fixed the bug first, which is 401.
Shouldn't stop all of the other.
Yeah, but the problem is that
process.
that pattern is also very questionable, because I don't think that's the pattern. I mean, that pattern is being used because there is no other way, right? Like if we did support multiple auth provider, then that pattern doesn't actually make sense. All right, I've digested the information, but I have no opinion.
Well, I'm glad that we all kind of understand what the issue is now. I wasn't sure if this is actually the issue, but now that we've gone through it, I think this is definitely the root cause of it. So
if we stop if we get like an 401 for one of the routines, and we don't stop that does allow us to support multiple auth providers, right?
You would still end up configuring multiple stores, and they're going to duplicate the data. They're going to do a bunch of things.
I see.
I think the fix should be multiple auth providers or multiple ways of doing the auth with the scope of the target. Like say, for example, if you're doing some registry, then like if it's Azure, use workload identity. If it's GHCR, maybe use Docker credentials, that kind of if it's Docker.io, use Docker config, things like that. That key value resolution is probably easy to implement. But given the timing, I think this is a follow-up, right? Like for like, we can discuss that separately.
So not, so no,
yeah, go
no.
ahead, Luis.
So you're saying we should, like, are you suggesting we shouldn't fix this for V1?
I think if we fix it for V1, we should not recommend use this pattern for multiple auth. We should fix it from as a bug standpoint, but and track a feature to enable bringing your private images from Docker Hub and bringing your private images from GHCR. That might, with different credentials. I think that's the scenario that I'm hearing. But given that it's all in the same cache, you don't want to duplicate those files across the cache and things like that. You can use the same cache, right? So you have one store with different target auths with, like Akash was saying, like a keychain style, like a dictionary type scoping of each authentication across registry, domain, or something like that. Whether it's a one-off fix, that I think you folks should decide. But I would say if we can fix the bug easily, let's go for it, or maybe unblock or ensure that the bug doesn't exist. But I don't know whether we should use that as a pattern for multiple credentials.
And I guess another follow-up ahead on that is, if let's say we do fix the bug and now we aren't exiting on an error from a single routine causing all of the routines to fail, how do we bubble up to the user which store was actually used for the actual verification, right? Like they could have two stores related, and then based off of which store we used, we performed the verification on those artifacts in that store.
Yeah, the other thing is, no, does it really matter? I mean, this is authentication, right?
In this scenario, it doesn't matter because it's really the same store, but you're defining two different auth providers. That's the purpose of having two different stores. But I don't know if we even need to consider this, but in the future, let's say you had like a file system based refer store as well as a registry based refer store, and you had both of them configured. How would you bubble up that, hey, actually for this verification report that we generated, we got the artifacts from this refer store versus the file system refer store? And they may have overlap in content, but they may also have different content labeled the same way or something.
I don't know what would be the value of getting that information across to the user. What are you thinking?
So the verifier report, wouldn't that be on the artifact?
That would be on the artifact, but the artifact belongs to a specific store, right? So you could have the artifact, the actual artifact could be different per store.
It could come cached on disk also, right? What I'm trying to get to is, does it really matter what store we used? I'm seeing this as more like diagnostic or logging information. Like, yeah, this one was done with this, but it doesn't matter which was the target. The other problem is we don't want to send the credentials to the wrong store. Let's say, for example, you have a workload identity or one credential. You don't want to try sending that credential to the wrong target, right? Like from a different registry, or basically, do you want to send your Docker credentials to GHCR and vice versa?
That's like,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So be very careful when you try the authentication across different targets. That's why I think you should fix it with correct auth scopes, not try all combinations, especially if you have credentials.
Yeah, which is, I think somewhere, Akash, you've mentioned the prefix matching. Like had previously, long time ago, talked about it.
Yeah.
And now the requirement is coming up again.
Cool. Let's at least open an issue. I mean, there is an issue, right?
Yeah, this is an issue created by Xinghe. Like potentially we might want to break it in. Like once we decide what to do, we need to create separate tasks.
Work items. Sounds good. Do we have a milestone? That you
Yeah. That's what we're discussing. Which milestone? What should we address for GA?
Right, because right now there's 2 RCs left before we add GA, and we ideally this is the last code. This is a code complete, the one we're at, with another one for quality.
The criteria for this would be if you GA'd it with this object model that cannot support multiple auth scopes, right? Like the last tab that you were showing for the configuration. Sorry, second tab, yeah. So here now you have an auth provider and you have a name, but it doesn't have a concept of a scope here. And you cannot do an array here. You can do only one. And if you GA this, adding that would be breaking change. Or you assume that this object can handle that case and you design up front and say we do only one and we'll support multiple along the way. Or maybe switch to a new property that is non-breaking. So those would be the things to consider for GA. As long as we have a path, I don't think this is a GA requirement, but we should kind of think about whether we can do this as a post, like a minor release if we can. Does that
minor release after GA?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you do a 1.0 and then you do a 1.1 supporting multiple auth providers, or maybe another field that says auth providers, and then you kind of have an array. I don't know. I'm just cooking things up right now, but the point is the same property cannot be used as a key value dictionary and as a single object. That would be challenging. That would be breaking, and you cannot do that in a minor release. But if you have a different property, or if you have if you assume this property can be an array or something like that, then maybe you can do that.
So changing the property type.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's something you folks will have to discuss.
Yeah, let's discuss. I would suggest.
Do you want to do that now?
Yeah. Luis, should we have some time to digest this, because this is pretty fresh, and then we can think about the problem, and then we can start with the proposal, and then we'll review it.
Yep. Yeah, I think we like we build a path for supporting. We don't do the support for GA. That's my thinking, but let's figure out what the path is.
Yep. Cool. Next one on the agenda, E brought up that we should talk about the breaking changes in RC7. E, do you want to add more detail to the, like which specific things you want to discuss?
Yeah, I just want to understand the breaking changes, how it will impact our users.
Got it. So you're interested in the list of like all of the breaking changes we're bringing in. Luis, is there a view that would do like a quick diff against RC7 to see all the merged PRs?
Is there a view?
Yeah, is there, like, I can go to the pull request and just see what's merged since RC6, or is there a better process?
No, I if we had a branch, we could, but I think
that's okay. I can just bring up the closed PR.
Well,
so
you can go to the commits, right? And also like anything that got commit after the last.
Yeah, maybe you can try go to the code view.
Yeah, go to
code.
code.
Yep.
And then go to commits.
Commits. Where is that? Is that on the top left?
You see the number 568.
568, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
you click that.
Oh, got it. Yep.
And then you can see all the commits since like we shipped on the.
Oh, okay. So let me clean up my tabs. Close.
I think the
Tabs to right.
release. I think
Yep.
the release was on the 721, right? So if we go down to.
Yeah, we can go from the backwards. So the first big one is the update, the reference from notary to notation. Bin, I think we said we will write up something about like how to upgrade or how to transition to this new plugin name. Is that somewhere in the PR or is it on the pull request?
I think it needs a separate PR to add a document.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're still working on that. Yeah, so the
Bin, do we have an
notation-
issue? Sorry, do we have
Yeah,
an
go
issue
ahead,
to
Luis.
track that?
I don't think so. We should create one.
Yeah, can you create one, please? Sorry, Susan.
Yeah, so this is the big one where the user would need to rename the plugin.
Okay. Yeah, this one I remember we also discussed it previously. Yeah.
Yep, so this is let me just take a note of this. So this one is breaking changes. So this is that one. Yeah, I'm just gonna scroll through. So as soon as someone see a breaking change, let me know. Bin is the policy CRD a breaking change, or is it just additional, right?
It's not. So yeah, it's backward compatible.
Yeah, great. So keep going down, and the cache high availability is also additional. We have a feature flag for it.
Yes, it's additional, but we did remove 2 Helm chart values, so we didn't edit anything, we just removed it. So that shouldn't be breaking change.
Yep. So
Yeah.
if the customer's chart,
Yeah.
but when
Yeah.
they upgrade, they will disappear from their chart, right? Unless they're having like a local chart. And then in that case, if they pass the values in, we just don't do anything with it.
Correct, yep.
Cool. And the policy CRD and controller, that's related to the policy work earlier.
That's the Aura support, right? The last one. Oh, no, that's the Opera engine, sorry.
Yeah, Open Engine, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and the OCI artifacts, we deleted the test, but we still support OCI artifact. Is I think my what I remember about this.
Wait, what is OC artifact? I'm curious.
It's the manifest, like the
Is it
OCI.
Aura's artifact manifest or OC artifact manifest?
This is the OCI artifact manifest, so we still support it, but for backwards compatibility. Yep.
Now I remember. Yep.
Yeah, because notations can still validate it, so we will still have that code path. Yeah, I think that's everything.
I have a small question around the naming. So I think
Yeah.
OCI artifact and the OCI artifact manifest seems to be different definitions from OCI spec. So should we call out that we removed OCI artifact manifest, which aligns with the latest version of OCI image spec? And we still support OCI artifact as non-container artifact used to be OCI artifact. I think this will add more clarity to the definitions or the naming.
It's not a breaking change, right?
It's not a breaking change. We just we will
Let's not talk about it. I'm curious, why do we need to call it out? Because it's not there in the OCI spec anymore. It was a reference, it was an RC implementation on the OCI side. You still support it. We haven't removed it. I guess when you GA it, you can say, maybe you can, when you break it is probably when you want to talk about it, is what I'm thinking. Or Feynman, you have another point?
Yeah, actually, my confusion is that we should say Ratify will not support OCI artifact manifest anymore, but
Yeah,
we still
going
support
forward.
OCI artifact. I think in general, those two definitions or those two terms are different means.
Yeah, but there's no breaking change. So do you want to make a message? Because I mean, if somebody tests it, it'll work, but or is it that you want to make a statement that going forward, we will not be supporting the deprecated artifact manifest or the removed artifact manifest or something like that?
I think we may need to clarify it in the release notes, at least the
Somewhere on the
title,
bottom, probably.
yeah, the PR title from Akash is a little bit confusing as it says removes OCI artifact.
Yeah, that's tricky.
But
That's
actually
what's
OCI artifact is
that's
still
what's there everywhere. Right?
able to do.
I mean, you can't go back and change history, but I think I understand what you're saying, which is you deleted the OCI artifact manifest tests. That's fine. Now I get it.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
Yeah, we can improve the description.
Just a question on that. How long are we going to support the old one?
You should take it out ASAP. Whenever you feel comfortable, just take it out.
Okay.
Before GA, definitely, I think you should take it out.
Okay, we should file a issue for that, I think. I can create it, Susan.
Thanks.
Sorry, I think we should still continue support consuming OCI artifact manifest.
Yeah, it's not going in this release. But for GA of Ratify, is there a reason why we should do that?
Because some customers, they already use some older RC release, for example, notation to sign, and also use auras to push. So once Ratify cannot consume that, so
I would recommend if they are producing signatures by RC version of CLI, they should expect an RC version of the consumer also. Anyway, let's open an issue. And it's not going anywhere today. Let's open an issue and then we'll kind of track it.
okay.
Cool. So far, the only breaking change is the update notation reference. Is that correct, everyone?
Yeah, it seems that we only have this one, and we will have a issue to track to provide a document for how user can handle this, right?
Yeah.
One question I had for some of the notation folks who are familiar with it, when did the artifact type change? Was that pre-OCI artifact manifest deprecation? Because there was a naming change in notation itself, right? Was there also naming change in the artifact type? Because that makes a difference on our end, because we won't be able to support the old version then. So signatures with an old artifact type won't be supported by Ratify.
Wait, artifacts. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Who's talking?
It's different for the signature media type or signature type. That one is not changed. It is always notary dot plus. I didn't remember details. So for that type, we didn't change that for the naming. Yeah.
Okay, so that's always been the same.
Yeah, the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other item is create an issue to just if we need to remove OCR artifact manifest by GA. Okay. The next item is negative testing before GA.
Yeah, so that I added these things. I remember Sajay mentioned the negative testing is also needed for Ratify. Maybe 1 month ago, things we did negative testing for notation before notation C7 release, and we did find some problems around that. And alongside with Bing, who is improving the Ratify error handling and also refactoring the error logs for Ratify. So I'm thinking we could trigger an active testing for before we release V1 and list potential negative test cases in a consolidated table or list. Then we can test and check if those new Ratify logs and error handling meets our expectation or not. That's a major purpose of considering the negative testing case.
Yeah, so some of the cases, so negative test, you mean when the signature does not exist or the signature is invalid, right?
Not only signature, I believe there might be some negative test cases from Kubernetes cluster or gatekeeper, as Ratify has a few dependencies, not only notation or signature. I think sign and verify is a major workflow, but we still need to confirm if there's any bad cases happened from the dependencies and see if error handling or those error logs meets our expectation.
Got it. So should we create an issue with like create negative test plan for Ratify or something like that?
I believe so. We need an issue and a consolidated list to gather all of those negative cases first, and then we can implement the negative test in the team.
Yep, sounds good. Anything else people want to discuss?
No, from my side.
Thanks for confirming. Okay, I guess we can wrap up early then. Thanks for joining, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.